Now imagine for a moment the amount of growth that you've experienced in your life over the past 10 years. Now imagine all of that was taken away from you overnight, just like that. Now this only begins to describe the experience that Rusty Labuschagne went through when he was falsely imprisoned for murder in Zimbabwe. In 2013, he was released after spending 10 years behind bars for a crime that he didn't commit. And since then, he has shared the story of how he overcame immense adversity and also has written a book called Beating Chains, which I hold in my hand. And Rusty, it's such a privilege to have you here with us, and to see the smile on your face warms the heart. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Kat.
So if you could, and I know this is probably a story that you've told over and over again, but take us back to that fateful fishing trip in Zimbabwe and what the circumstances were around you getting to prison in Zimbabwe.
It was December 2000, and I went on a fishing trip with friends of mine to my fishing resort on Lake Kariba. And late one afternoon, one of my mates and I decided to go tiger fishing on the lake, leaving the other guys bream fishing in the river. And on our way back, we spotted two fish poachers in a steel boat, who immediately upon seeing us started paddling hastily for the shore in an effort to get away from us. And knowing that they were known poachers, I drove my boat towards them to scare them off, and the wake of my boat tilted their boat, causing them to jump out into the water, which was about 1.5 meters deep.
Yeah.
They were about 3 meters from the shore and soon scrambled to dry land. Then my friend and I watched as they ran away into the bush, thinking nothing more of it. The following day, the police arrived and accused us of drowning one of those poachers. To cut a long story short, I was framed by the poacher, the police, and the courts in an ugly political conspiracy against police evidence, without a body and on presumptions. I was convicted of drowning that poacher and sentenced to 15 years, of which 5 were suspended.
That is... I can't even wrap my mind around how that must feel when that initial encounter even happens and you're accused of this. But fast forward through the legal process, or the lack thereof, here you find yourself in prison in your first few days. Take me through that experience and what that was like for you.
So what they do, Kat, is you get to the prison after you're sentenced, and before you walk into the maximum security exercise yard, it's a 20-foot wide wall with huge wooden doors. They make you strip naked, and you walk in stark naked. There were 1,000 guys in there, and I was the only white guy. And they escort you to the guards that are all sitting down, and they question you over and over, naked and terrified. And then finally they gave me one set of clothing, one shirt and one pair of drawstring white shorts. That is the only pair of clothing you're allowed at any one time for the first 8 years. They escorted me up to my cell. That was 13 meters long by 3 meters wide. We were 78 guys. So everybody got 33 centimeters of space marked out on the walls in chalk. So you were packed like sardines, with legs all crossing over in the middle, because it's only 3 meters wide. And you all faced the same direction. When you turned over, it was all together. And as cushioning against the cold concrete floor, you'd fold 2 of your paper-thin, worn-out, lice-ridden blankets several times to fit your space, then covered yourself with a third one. And then we had no basins or taps in the cells, and only one set of clothing at any one time. So we had to wash our clothes in the cell toilets at night, wearing a blanket, then hang them on the wall with smuggled book staples to dry by the next morning.
Wow.
And then in 2005, Harare City ran out of water. So for 3 years, while in Chikurubi Maximum Security Prison, every prisoner was allocated 1 plastic cup of water a day. That was to drink, clean your teeth, wash your face, bath, everything, for 3 years.
And that's just the beginning
That's
of the
just the
entire
beginning.
story. 10 years later, you're out, and what completely perplexes me is how you even learned the lesson of complete and utter forgiveness out of this entire ordeal. And we will find out more about that. Stay tuned to your Feel Good Breakfast show. More with Rusty Labuschagne after the break.
It's my Feel Good Breakfast Show.
Welcome back to your Feel Good Breakfast show on this Friday morning. We have with us Rusty Labuschagne, author of Beating Chains, a book that tells his story, his ordeal after being wrongfully accused and convicted for murder in Zimbabwe in 2003. 10 years later, he walks out of prison a changed man, one who's learned forgiveness in extraordinary circumstances. But I want to just quickly go back to the fact that there was a lot happening in Zimbabwe during this time while you were in prison. There was the economic crash. where were you reaching out to for help? I mean, Zimbabwe is a neighboring country to South Africa. Did you have contact with the outside world? Did you know how long you were going to be in prison for when you walked in?
No, after I was sentenced, I knew that I was going to be there 10 years. But what I'd like to emphasize, Kat, is the power of hope when you're in that situation. I was always going home now.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I had
That's
endless promises that you're going home now. If I had to think in there that I was going to spend even 3 years in there, it would have been a different mindset completely.
Yeah. So then, the existence of hope, and you talk about thinking just now it's going to happen.
Yeah.
What was your ultimate low point when you realized that it's not going to be now?
I never ever didn't realize that. I remained focused that I was going home for 10 years.
And throughout this, you also then became a source of hope for other prison inmates there with your leadership skills, with your views on positive existence. How did those save you and at the end teach you the unconditional forgiveness that you were telling me about early?
Kat, the humiliation of being labelled a murderer in terrible conditions were extremely hard to deal with, as was the pain of my anger, bitterness, hatred, revenge, that was eating away at me every day. And I hated them bitterly for what they'd done and were doing to me.
Yeah.
And then, after about a year, I was tired of all the anger, hatred, and bitterness. It was draining me daily. And I remember the exact moment walking in that exercise yard, and I just said to myself, just let the Lord take care of them, and let me get through this road that's been put in front of me.
Sure.
And once I'd accepted that, my life in prison changed. But I think you have to be pushed that low to appreciate what forgiveness really is, like Nelson Mandela did.
Yeah.
And only when you push that low, and under those conditions, watching people dying every day, the Zimbabwe crash was horrific. So there was no food outside of prison, never mind in there. And during my first 6 years, I watched over 2,200 people die in prison. So to overcome all of that mentally, you've got to really stay focused.
Yeah.
And I never lowered myself to be affected by them because they try and break you. You know, when I went in there, I was flying my own aircraft. I had 5 businesses. I was doing really well. And full of confidence, flying high. And when you get in there, they crush you. They break your confidence, your spirit, everything.
Yeah.
And when you come out, you have to pick that up and keep going.
What do you want people to glean from your experience and from this book when they read it?
The power of forgiveness, the importance and value and gratitude, being thankful and grateful about who you are, what you have, and what you've achieved. So many people want too much in their lives, forgetting about what they have. And for me, it's about giving thanks every day and appreciate everyday little things in life, like a soft bed, a hot bath, a spontaneous cuddle from a loved one, because those are the things you miss most when you have it all taken away. And then the power of freedom. People don't appreciate freedom. And only when you have your freedom completely taken away, do you realize in many ways that you're actually in prison too. It's our business partnerships, badly selected careers, being obsessed with money and ambition in the corporate world, even unhappy marriages. So when I look back on it all, it makes me realize that it makes me wish I could tell people how powerful and positive freedom is, true freedom. So if people could learn those 3 things, that would be wonderful.
Rusty, thank you very, very much for joining us, for sharing your story, and I hope that it inspires so many out there. The book is available, and you can also follow at Beating Chains on social media for more information.
Matt Cat, it's available on www.beatingchains.com.
Thank you, sir.
My website.
There we go.